Welcome to Eternal Love Diaries, where real stories change real lives. Every love carries a story. And here, each one is told from the heart. Today's story follows James, a 38-year-old single father who spent the last 5 years raising his daughter alone after losing his wife to cancer. Between his demanding job as a high school science teacher and being a full-time dad, dating has been the last thing on his mind. But when his well-meaning sister sets him up on his first blind date in years, a public disaster unfolds at a local restaurant. Just when James is ready to give up on love entirely, a kind stranger at the next table offers him an unexpected second chance. What happens next will challenge everything he believes about fate, timing, and whether it's possible to find room in a broken heart for something new. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings happen right after our most humiliating moments. "I can't believe I'm doing this," James muttered, adjusting his tie for the 5th time in the restaurant parking lot. 5 years since Sarah passed, 5 years of being both mom and dad to Lily, and now here he was, about to meet a complete stranger because his sister wouldn't stop pestering him about getting back out there. His phone buzzed with a text from the babysitter confirming that Lily had finished her homework and was happily watching a movie. At least something was going right tonight. With one final deep breath, he stepped out of his car and walked toward the entrance of Bellini's, the nicest Italian restaurant in town, wondering if he was making a terrible mistake. The hostess led James to a table where a woman in a sleek black dress was already seated, scrolling through her phone. "You must be James," she said without looking up, her voice flat and uninterested. "I'm Vanessa. Your sister showed me your picture, but you look different in person." The way she said "different" made it clear she didn't mean it as a compliment. James awkwardly slid into his seat, already feeling the evening spiraling downward before it had even begun. He noticed Vanessa glance at his slightly worn blazer, the one he'd bought years ago for parent-teacher conferences, and saw the flicker of judgment in her eyes. "So, Cynthia tells me you're a teacher?" Vanessa asked, finally putting down her phone after sending one last text. James nodded, launching into his standard explanation about teaching high school chemistry and how rewarding it was to inspire young minds. He was mid-sentence when Vanessa's phone buzzed again, and she immediately picked it up, holding up one manicured finger to silence him. "Sorry, I have to take this. Work emergency." But the smile that spread across her face as she typed suggested it was anything but work-related. James sat in uncomfortable silence, taking a long sip of water and noticing a woman at the next table glance over sympathetically. 20 minutes into the date, and James had learned everything about Vanessa's job in pharmaceutical sales, her recent vacation to Bali, and her CrossFit routine, but she hadn't asked him a single question about himself or his daughter. When he mentioned Lily, Vanessa's expression shifted noticeably. "Oh, you actually have the kid full-time? Cynthia didn't mention that. I'm not really looking to be anyone's instant mom, you know." The word stung more than James expected, reminding him of the invisible barrier that seemed to form whenever potential dates discovered he was a package deal. He thought of Lily at home, with her gap-toothed smile and endless questions about the universe, and wondered what he was even doing here. The breaking point came when the waiter arrived with their appetizers. "So, do you date much?" Vanessa asked, finally showing a flicker of interest in his life. James started to answer honestly about his hesitations and challenges as a single parent when Vanessa's phone rang. "I need to take this," she said, standing up abruptly. "Actually, I think I need to go. Something's come up with a client." The transparent lie hung in the air between them. "I'll Venmo you for my drink," she added, already gathering her purse. Before James could respond, she was walking briskly toward the exit, leaving him alone with 2 untouched appetizers and a restaurant full of pitying glances. James sat frozen in humiliation, aware of the curious stares from nearby tables. He should just pay the bill and leave, salvage what little dignity remained after being so publicly abandoned. As he signaled for the check, he heard a gentle voice from the table to his right. "Rough night?" He turned to see the woman who had been glancing his way earlier. She had warm brown eyes and a kind smile that reached them, her curly hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. "If you're free, why don't you sit here instead? My reservation was for 2, but my friend cancelled last minute. Seems like we're both having dinner disasters." There was something so genuine in her invitation that James found himself nodding before he could overthink it. "I'm Elena," she said as James awkwardly transferred his water glass to her table, the waiter looking confused but accommodating. "And based on what I couldn't help overhearing, you're James, you teach chemistry, and you have a daughter who I'm guessing is pretty amazing." Her directness was refreshing after Vanessa's obvious disinterest. "I'm sorry if this is weird," Elena continued, "but no one should have to eat alone after being ditched like that. Plus, I ordered way too much food for one person." The tension in James's shoulders began to ease as Elena pushed a basket of garlic bread toward him with a conspiratorial smile. What started as a rescue from embarrassment quickly evolved into the most comfortable conversation James had experienced in years. Elena was a pediatric physical therapist who worked with children with disabilities, and her stories about her young patients had James alternating between laughter and being deeply moved. "So this little boy, Max, he's been told his whole life what he can't do because of his cerebral palsy," Elena explained, her eyes lighting up. "Last week, he took his first independent steps with his new walker, looked right at me and said, 'Now I can dance at parties.' Kids like that remind me every day why I do what I do." James found himself sharing stories about his own students, the small victories in his classroom that made the long hours worthwhile. When James mentioned Lily, instead of the usual awkward pause, Elena leaned forward with genuine interest. "What's she like?" she asked, and the simple question opened a floodgate. James found himself describing Lily's obsession with space, her collection of rocks that she insisted were potentially undiscovered minerals, and how she still slept with the stuffed elephant that Sarah had given her before she died. "She sounds incredible," Elena said softly. "You must be doing something right." The compliment, so sincere and unexpected, caught James off guard. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen, not as a sad widower or a dating challenge, but as a father doing his best. As they shared tiramisu for dessert, Elena mentioned casually that she volunteered at the Children's Science Museum on weekends. "They're doing this special exhibit on space next Saturday," she said, twirling her fork thoughtfully. "They need volunteers to help with the interactive stations. I don't suppose you and Lily might be interested? They're desperately short-handed, and it sounds right up her alley." The invitation was perfectly calibrated, not quite a date, but a chance to see each other again in a setting that included his daughter. James found himself agreeing immediately, surprising himself with his eagerness. The following Saturday, James watched nervously as Lily approached Elena at the museum entrance. His daughter, usually shy around new adults, immediately launched into a detailed explanation of the difference between meteors, meteorites, and meteoroids. Instead of the polite nodding most people offered, Elena asked thoughtful follow-up questions that delighted Lily. "Dad, Elena knows about the Perseid meteor shower," Lily exclaimed, bouncing on her toes with excitement. "She says we might be able to see it next month if we go somewhere dark enough." The way Elena included Lily, treating her questions with respect rather than condescension, made something warm unfurl in James's chest. The museum day turned into dinner at a casual pizza place, which led to Elena joining them for a hike the following weekend. Each time they met, James found himself opening up more, sharing stories about Sarah that he usually kept locked away. "She would have loved how you're raising Lily," Elena told him one evening as they watched Lily examining leaves under a portable microscope Elena had brought as a gift. "You've kept her memory alive without letting grief define your daughter's childhood. That's a remarkable balance." The observation, so perceptive and kind, brought unexpected tears to James's eyes that he quickly blinked away. Just as James was beginning to believe something special was developing, Elena grew suddenly distant. Her texts became shorter, she cancelled plans last minute, and when they did meet, she seemed preoccupied. "Did I do something wrong?" James finally asked after a particularly quiet dinner where Elena had barely touched her food. They were sitting on a park bench while Lily played on the swings nearby, the setting sun casting long shadows across the grass. Elena's eyes filled with tears as she shook her head. "It's not you, James. I got a job offer. In Denver. It's the opportunity I've been working toward for years, directing a pediatric rehabilitation center. I leave in 3 weeks." The news hit James like a physical blow. "Were you going to tell me?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady, aware of Lily watching them curiously from the playground. Elena looked down at her hands. "I was trying to figure out how. This thing between us, it's become so important to me, so quickly. But I've been working toward this position for years, long before I met you. I can't ask you to uproot Lily's life, and long distance rarely works, especially with someone who has responsibilities like yours." The practical truth of her words didn't make them hurt any less. James nodded stiffly, feeling the familiar weight of loss settling back onto his shoulders. The following weeks passed in a blur of forced normalcy. James and Elena still saw each other, but there was a new carefulness between them, both trying to protect themselves from the inevitable goodbye. Lily, perceptive as always, asked one night as James tucked her in, "Is Elena going away because of me? Because some of my friends' parents don't want to date my dad when they find out about me." The innocent question broke James's heart. "No, sweetheart," he assured her, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. "Elena loves spending time with you. She's leaving because she has a chance to help lots of children who need her special skills. Sometimes adults have to make hard choices, even when they don't want to." 3 days before Elena's scheduled departure, James received an unexpected call from Lily's school. His daughter had collapsed during gym class and was being taken to the hospital with a dangerously high fever. The next hours were a terrifying blur of emergency room lights, concerned doctors, and tests that revealed a serious kidney infection that had gone undetected. As Lily was admitted for 4 antibiotics, James found himself automatically calling Elena, his fingers dialing her number before his brain could catch up. "I'll be right there," she said without hesitation, her voice steady and sure despite the panic in his. Elena arrived at the hospital with a backpack full of essentials, a change of clothes for James, Lily's favorite books, healthy snacks, and even a small stuffed astronaut. "You remembered she collects space things," James said, the simple thoughtfulness undoing him after hours of fear and uncertainty. Elena squeezed his hand. "Of course I did. I remember everything about both of you." She stayed through the night, charming the nurses into bringing extra blankets, explaining medical terms in ways that calmed both father and daughter, and stepping out only briefly to make calls rescheduling her Denver departure. On the 3rd day of Lily's hospitalization, when the doctors confirmed she was responding well to treatment, James found Elena in the hospital cafeteria staring at her phone with a troubled expression. "Everything okay?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from her with 2 cups of mediocre coffee. Elena looked up, her eyes conflicted. "The Denver Center called. They need an answer by tomorrow. If I don't take the position, they're offering it to someone else." James felt his heart sink. "You should take it," he said, the words painful but necessary. "It's your dream job. We'll be fine." Elena reached across the table to take his hand, her touch sending the same electric current through him it had since that first night at the restaurant. "That's just it," Elena said softly. "I've been thinking about what dreams really mean. I've wanted to direct a rehabilitation center since grad school. But these past months with you and Lily, they've shown me something I didn't know I was missing." She took a deep breath. "There's a position opening at Children's Hospital here. It's not a director role, but it's a good team, doing important work. I called them yesterday." James stared at her, afraid to misunderstand. "Are you saying?" Elena nodded, a smile breaking through her serious expression. "I'm saying that sometimes the universe has better plans than we do. Sometimes you go to dinner alone and end up finding a family instead. Lily was discharged the following day, weak but recovering. As James helped her into the car, she asked sleepily, "Is Elena still leaving?" Before James could answer, Elena spoke from where she stood loading Lily's things into the trunk. "Actually, I thought maybe I could stick around. If that's okay with you?" Lily's face lit up with a joy that mirrored the feeling expanding in James's chest. "Really? You're staying?" Elena moved to the car window, gently tucking a strand of hair behind Lily's ear. "Really? Some things are worth changing your plans for." Over Lily's head, her eyes met James's, full of promise and possibility. 6 months later, James found himself back at Bellini's, this time sitting across from Elena, who was laughing as she recounted Lily's latest science experiment gone wrong. "I still have blue stains on my kitchen ceiling," she said, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Worth it to see her face when the volcano actually worked, though. James reached across the table to take her hand, marveling at how completely his life had transformed since that disastrous blind date. "Thank you," he said simply. Elena tilted her head questioningly. "For what?" James smiled, thinking of all the answers he could give: for loving Lily, for staying, for bringing laughter back into their home. "For asking me to sit at your table that night," he said finally. "Best detour I've ever taken. We'd love to know, which country are you watching from? Drop a comment below. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in second chances, show your support by hitting the like button. Subscribe to Eternal Love Diaries for more stories that touch the heart and change perspectives. From Portland, Oregon, United States, we thank you for joining us on this journey of love, loss, and the courage to begin again. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives start on the pages we never planned to write.